we can get started
Sorry
now.
about that.
No. I love talking about this stuff, and I mean, and so the way I want this to work, if you guys have questions as we're going through this, drop something in the chat or speak up. I'll be checking both. Don't be afraid to interrupt me. Like, I really don't care. Like, we can just just have a conversation as we go. There's only 4 of us, which is great. We can keep things at everybody's pace and personal. So yeah, let's go. We're gonna be first thing. I want to show you guys a demo. What exactly are we gonna be? What could we build with this? What could we build with Flask? And then we're gonna talk more about it. So this is a very basic web application, and you see my upcoming events. This is a home page. Navigate to the calendar. So if I click on this calendar, it takes me to the web app /cal, and then here are the next 10 events on Enlight's calendar. And these were dynamically pulled. So right now you can see this web dev with Flask workshop is actually that's what we're in right now, right? And I put this on the Enlight calendar. But in about an hour, when this is over, if you refresh this page, it won't be there anymore. Instead, you'll see weekly update and then the next event after Team Retro on the bottom. So this is what you can do with Flask. You can build a web application that can dynamically retrieve and display data to whoever's looking at it. So now let's talk a little bit more about all those words that I just said and what they mean. So first of all, what's the difference between a web app and a website? So let's start with websites. You guys have made your own personal websites, right? And so when somebody goes to your website, they type jasonlin.com or jasonlin.netlify.app. And they're brought to your website where you might have some images, you might have a video, and you'll have information. But everybody who types your website, they see the exact same thing, right? And they might be able to click to different pages, but the information on those pages never changes, right? So now let's talk about web apps. What makes web apps different? So web apps are like websites, but you can dynamically interact with them. The best example of this, let's take Enlight. You go to enlight.nyc and you can log into it. You go to the login page and you type your username and your password. And when you click enter, your information is sent to the Enlight's database in the backend, and it basically confirms that this username and this password is a valid record in our database. And if it does, it logs you in. And now the information that you see, I mean, theoretically it's unique to you, but in Enlight's case, maybe it isn't. But let's take Gmail. You log into Gmail, you're not going to see Sophia's inbox. You're going to see your inbox, unless you're Sophia, right? Other things you can do with web apps, you can use them to process payments because you want your credit card or your PayPal information, whatever, to be secure. You're interacting with the website. You can also, Enlight is a web app because that allows you to post comments on articles, right? You can directly interact with and make an impact on the website, or the web app, I should say. They're both like websites, but one is a little more, I guess, technical than the other. Does that make sense so far to everybody? You can give a thumbs up or something, yeah, since you're all muted. Cool. So let's get started with Flask now. Flask, like I said before, it's a micro framework and written in Python that allows you to host web applications that are written in Python with the markup being in HTML and CSS. So in order to do this, you can either create a new repo or you can just go straight to your command line and just type pip install flask, assuming that you have Python installed on your machine. And if you don't, that's actually okay because we're going to do this demo in Replit, and Replit can take care of all that for you. But if you want to do this on your computer right now, I would take a minute to open up your command line and type in pip install flask. And for those of you who don't know, pip is Python's package manager that basically allows you to download any public library anybody has made available, like anywhere. So common examples that come to my head as a data science guy: pandas, matplotlib, Seaborn, scikit-learn. These are all libraries that you can install on your computer and pull from. So Flask is one of these libraries. In this case, it's actually an entire framework for web apps. So yeah, if you guys want to take a minute and type pip install flask, it should take, I don't know, probably 20 seconds or so to install, assuming you have Python. And if you don't have Python, then that's fine because we're going to work in Replit anyway. And if you guys have questions, now's a great time to speak up before we keep going. You can give a thumbs up or something when you guys are ready to go. Awesome. I like this. So that's it. We're going to dive in now. Let's get coding. We're going to use Replit, but if you want to use a text editor or an IDE like Sublime Text or VS Code, you can pop those open too. And yeah, for the sake of simplicity, we'll stick to Replit. I'm going to stick to Replit personally. So we go to Replit, and we say new REPL. If it loads, I would like a new REPL, please. Python, and I want Flask tutorial. Create REPL, lovely. Okay, so now we're brought to our REPL page. We have our main.py file, and that's basically the main page of which we're going to run our application from. So the first thing we need to do is actually import Flask into this REPL. So we're going to type from Flask import Flask. It sounds kind of silly, but what this is basically doing, it says from the Flask library, import the Flask function, and the Flask function is what actually makes our web app possible. Right? Next thing we want to do, we're going to define the actual app. So let's say app equals Flask. We're going to call the function Flask on double underscore name double underscore. And so this is actually something I can talk about briefly, why we use double underscore name double underscore, which from here on after I'm going to refer to as dunder double underscore, also known as dunder name. It's a cute little abbreviation I learned. So why do we say app equals Flask dunder name? So what we're about to actually type is if dunder name equals main, oops, I got it? Yeah, I did get it. App.run. So what we're saying here is that if the name of the script, because dunder name refers to the name of the script, and the name of our script in this case is main.py. So if the name of our script is main, then this app will run. So if we try to import this script into a different Python file, it's not going to run. And the reason we do this is so that we can contain our application to this single Python script. It's just the best practice, and that's just what people do. So app.run, and before I move on with the next thing, are any of you not on Replit? Because this is going to change now if you're not on Replit. Okay, you're all on Replit. Fantastic. So what we're actually going to do here, normally, if you were going to do this on VS Code or Sublime or anything else, don't type this. You would type debug equals true, and that's just for your text editor or IDE to know to turn on debugging mode. But we're not going to worry about this right now. Instead, because we want our application to run in Replit, we are actually going to type in, got to pull it up, I saved it here, app.run, host equals 0.0.0, port equals 8080. Let me drop that in the chat for all of you. And you can just copy that right into app.run. Thumbs up when you guys got it. Sweet. Take this quick drink of water. We're almost ready to run this thing, actually. The last thing we need to do is define a home page, essentially. So how do we do that? Let's say that I forgot. I actually do know how to, but I'm going to pretend right now for the sake of this workshop that I forgot. I'm going to open a new tab and Google it, honestly. How to create a web page in Flask. And this is a very common practice to do if you're stuck on something, or if you just forget something, or you just don't know how to do something. Like, it's very common to Google, and it's okay to Google. Googling is not admitting defeat or anything like that. It's literally just finding an answer to a question that you don't have the answer to. Let's see. Maybe instead of web page, let's say home page. Home page in Flask. Okay, let's try this Medium article. Medium is generally pretty good, but sometimes there's garbage content. But usually, if stuff is at the top, it's decent. Just gonna look for some code. App equals Flask under name. Okay, we got something here. The decorator. Oops, where are we? Aha. So app.route backslash, and that just makes it default to the default page. So app route slash is going to be the page that you get when you just run this thing. So let's go back to our replit now and type that in with the decorator app dot route in quotes backslash. So this is the default route. I can't type. I can't spell today. And now let's take a quick look at what they said afterwards. It's a decorator, the line on top of a function converts it to a route. Cool. And then underneath the route, we want to put the function that we return, or they're calling it a method, but that's bad syntax. It's a function. The function that we return when we get to this route. So let's define a new function. And in Python, you define functions by saying def and then the function name. We don't want to pass in any parameters. We just want it to return my first Flask app. Cool. And now we have a home page. Let's run it and make sure it works. Right, once you click run, Replit's going to do some things where it basically installs Flask on your system. You give it 5 seconds, and you should see it pop up here, actually, in your little preview window. Have you all got something like this? If not, you can unmute yourself and we can talk about it. We can talk through it. Have you got it? Sweet. Okay, so now we have a web page, and right now it's just returning this simple statement that we put. Oops, I just copied it. This simple thing that we sort of just did, right? Now, what if we wanted to make our own actual pages, right? Let's see. We want to say that I don't know. We want to create a home.html, right? Like, I don't want to just be able to return a single string. I want to get a whole Python web page, a whole HTML web page, excuse me. So what we're going to do actually is create a new file now, and we'll call it home.html. And you just click the little thing, add file, and then we can do this. And now let's quickly throw together a home page. So we'll start with HTMLs, /HTML, lovely. And then what else can we do? We can put in the head, say the title, title, my Flask app, title, close the head. And now we want to open up the body, and we'll say, we put in a h1 tag, Max's Flask app. h1, and then we'll say, let's put in a little p tag and say, here is my Flask app returning HTML using Python. You can put whatever the hell you want here. I'm just typing off the top of my head here, I promise. And then we close the body up, and that should be good to go. So we have an HTML web page, but how do we tell main.py that we want to show this web page? So let's take a look at what we can do. It turns out that in Flask isn't the only thing you can import. You can also import this other function called render_template. And what render_template does is it basically returns HTML pages instead of just, silly little strings. So now we can go back to here and say, rather than returning this my first Flask app, we can turn render underscore template, and then we just type the name of the page that we want to return in quotes. Just stop this, and once we do that, if we run it again, I hope this works. Something did not like something. Okay. Template not found, home.html. Oh crap, I know what I did wrong. So I said render.template, but home.html isn't actually a template, right? It's your excuse me. It is your homepage itself, right? Like, it's not an actual template. So something you can do with Flask is create template pages that basically resemble, that will appear on every single web page. So if we go back to my example that I'm hosting on Google App Engine, this my upcoming events and this navigation bar stays the same, right? And I didn't hard code that in. I just created a template HTML, and that template HTML shows on every single web page that this app would have. So we can do something similar here, actually. Let's go back to our replit, and let's create first, let's create a new folder called templates. And then inside that new folder, we want to create, actually, before we do that, inside, let's drop home.html into here. You can just click and drag. This might actually be enough. I'm actually not completely sure. Oh, it is enough. Look at that. I was overcomplicating myself. So, and I'll explain why this worked. When you tell it to render underscore template, Flask looks for a folder in your directory called templates. And in that templates folder, it will look for, in our case, a file called home.html. And if it finds that file, it's going to show it. But before, it didn't show it because, first of all, there wasn't even a templates folder. And so it didn't even recognize that home HTML was a template. So now that we have a templates folder and we have a home.html, we can render a template and we can see it when we run the script. Are you guys still with me? Cool. So what can we do from here? Let's try to create another web page. Like, we have the default route for backslash. What if we want to create another web page? Like, in my nav bar here, I have home and calendar. Does somebody want to give me an example of another web page that I can create another route? This is the part where you unmute yourself and volunteer.
Can you say that again? I was getting scared because mine said it wasn't working for a second and then it started working.
Did you fix it?
I did, but what did you say?
So my question was, let's create my statement actually was, let's create another web page. We have the home page. Let's create another route. So what do you guys want to call this new route?
About Python. Is that
about
allowed?
Python? Okay. Let's do it.
If there's something better, we should do that.
No, I'm fine with it. Anybody else? Does anybody have any serious objections to about?
Come on, guys.
No, I think we're good. So, Sophia, I'm gonna pick on you. What do you think we have to do to create /about Python?
Okay, to create another route, well, I guess we would probably have to make another HTML file.
That's true. We want something to display when we actually call about Python. But
right.
before that even, how do we even make sure that when you go to your web app and then you say /about Python, anything actually pops up at all?
Okay, so you need to make sure that the app works in that area. So do you need to say that app route? So do you need to make another route? So you have the default route.
So what do I want to put in here now?
Oh, so /about Python.
There we go.
That's nuts.
There we go. And now we can define another function, and we can just call this about for brevity. And for now, just for the simplicity's sake, we can say pretend this says something about Python. And so if we run this guy, we'll say / can I just modify the route by any chance? Let's see, can I open this in a new window? Please work. Oh, I can custom domain. There we go. Oh no, that's not what that does. I actually want to change this. Well, let me do this here. See, I didn't actually test this part about creating new pages in Replit. In any text editor, this works perfectly fine, but Replit likes to complain it doesn't do everything you want it to sometimes. Maybe what we can do is, this might be a good time to talk about actual templates, actually, now that we're at this point. So what we're going to do is, maybe this loaded. Hang on. Oops. Site can't be reached. Oh, there we go. Cool. This works. So if you just click open in a new tab and you go to it, let's type /about Python. Ta-da. How are we doing? Okay, so Jason's shaking his head. Sam is good. Sophia is somewhere in the middle.
I'm trying right now.
Is it loading?
Actually,
it works. To load?
Yeah, it works now.
Cool. Let's make sure Sophia gets it working too, and we can keep going.
It can't find my URL. I don't know. Maybe I probably misspelled something somewhere.
So
let me just.
So did you open it in a new tab like this by clicking this button?
That's right. I did that.
Okay, and then once it loads the URL, you just want to put a /about Python, however you made the route in here.
Shoot, I did that too.
And what's it doing now?
Here, I'll try it again. Probably just spelling things wrong. Oh, it says not found. The requested URL was not found in the server. So is it /about Python?
I would try stopping the REPL and rerunning it.
Stopping. Oh.
Because it doesn't update on the fly, unfortunately.
Aha. I hope that's it. About Python.
This, unfortunately, is not the JavaScript framework known as React, which literally reacts to what changes you make.
Perfect. That worked.
That worked?
Thank you.
Sweet. Okay. So now we have 2 web pages, right, that you can flip back and forth between if you just type the URLs. But what if I'm lazy and I don't want to be typed the URLs? I just want to click a button and I want to get from between my 2 pages, right? So this is where a template comes in handy, because what we can do is that we can create an HTML file that appears in every single web page. So let's do this by creating a new file in templates called template. Template.html. Zoom is complaining, that's fine. So let me pull up my notes really quick on how to do this. So let's just, I'm just gonna copy paste this stuff over because a lot of this is just boilerplate formatting. And what we wanna do here is say, rather than Max's Flask app, I wanna say, actually no, we can keep Max's Flask app, that's fine. What we will actually say here is, instead of a p tag, let's make an unordered list of and let's give it a class of menu. And this is going to help us later if you decide you want to do some styling and you want to style this nav bar that we're about to make. But you technically don't actually have to do this. And we want to create 2 list items in it, and they will be href tags. And what you can do, and this is part of the beauty of Flask, is that you can use curly brackets to type in URLs that you want. So if you do 2 curly brackets, and then you say URL for the function name, the function name. So for the home page, it would be home, because that's in my main.py. I defined home, and yes, and we'll call this home. And then we close the a tag first, but because it's a list item, we also have to close the list item tag. And let's do this again. I'm just going to copy paste it. URL for about, because it's not about Python, because I defined the function as about, even though it will take me to about Python. So about, and we can say here about Python. Oops. Yeah. And then the last thing we have to do here, what I'm gonna do here to make things a lot cooler, I'm gonna enclose everything in here in a header tag, and that's gonna make things a lot easier for when we do a template. The last thing you have to do is, before you close the body tag, give yourself a little bit of white space, and you want to basically create blocks for where you want, so that now you have a header, and this header is going to appear on all of your web pages in your Flask web app. But what about the actual contents of the pages, right? So let's talk about blocking content. We'll say block content, and then right below it, we'll type end block. And so what does this do? Block content tells Flask to, on the route that you're on the route that you're on, put all the content in that HTML file between where it says block content and where you end the block content. So all the contents of home are going to fit between lines 13 and 14 here. And you'll get a better idea of how this actually works out. Yeah. And then the last thing we have to do is go to our home page and kind of tell it that we want it to accept the template. And we do this by giving ourselves a little more white space and more curly braces. You say extends, in quotes, template.html, and another percentage and a curly brace. And then you have to tell it where the content that you want to extend is. So we're going to start the content block again, block content. And then after all our content is over, I'm going to say, again, end block. Like that. I'm going to get rid of this h1 tag since it doesn't make as much sense, since that's already in the header. And so now what it's going to do is, and we don't need a title anymore either. Do we? We can keep one just in case. I'm actually not too sure. Actually, we do need a title, because this title tag that's the title in your tab bar. So it actually does make it. It actually is kind of necessary. And now I'm going to make sure I got all this stuff. Home.html. Yes. Okay. This should be enough. This should be everything we need. If we stop and rerun it, okay, I didn't do something right, actually. Unexpected curly brace. Where is there an unexpected curly brace? Oh, I did not close the block content here. So you need, for when you have these like single curly braces, you need percentage signs around them, and you need a space between what you type. But for the routings, you'll do a double curly brace in quotes. And this is just syntax. Like, it's annoying, but it's how it works. And if you did this like me, you should have gotten something like this. Let's open this up in a new tab again. And so now we should be able to jump between our pages. I don't know why it doesn't like this. Oh, there we go. It was just slow. Oh, we didn't actually render it in a new page, right? So this is why we'd have to create a second web page, like Sophia was talking about before. But now, in our home page, from Max's Flask app to where About Python ends, that stuff came from template.html. But here's my Flask app returning HTML using Python. That came from home.html. That's the difference. Are all of you more or less at this point? We got one thumbs up. Hi, Sophia.
Can you go back to, wait, yes, template.html. You said, I missed the blocks. That's what I did.
Yeah, so after the header, you need to basically tell it where you want the content that you're importing to start and end.
Okay. It's funny because it actually still worked for me, but I want to do it right.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Yeah.
It probably would have broken in another way, to be honest with you.
Oh, I'm sure. What content? I'm slow at typing. We'll get there. End block. All right, I got it.
You got it? Jason, you got it too, right? Sweet. So now let's create a page for About Python so that we can actually navigate back and forth between our pages. So again, inside our templates folder, let's create a page. What's it called? About.html. And I'm literally going to do the same thing again where I go to home and copy paste this yucky boilerplate HTML inside. The only things I'm probably going to really change is what's in this tag. So change the title as well, about Python. And then in here, let's look up some information about Python. How was Python created? We're literally, let's rip this right off Wikipedia. I don't care. And we're going to go back, and in our p tag, we can just copy paste it in.
No. Oh, wait, I'm not muted. Sorry, Mom.
And so we stop, rerun this. It didn't. Oh, because we didn't return it. Duh. And now let's try it. And now you should have 2 pages that you can flip back and forth between all day if you like. Do you guys need me to go back to any file? And if not, the last thing we can do is we can style it up a little bit, because plain HTML kind of looks like garbage. Jason, are you good? Okay, cool. So before we create our CSS file, let's go to template and link the style sheet that we want to use. So inside our head tag, right underneath title, let's say link relation equals style sheet, and the href is going to be, this is a complicated one actually. I'm going to just copy paste this one right in, and I'll share it with you guys as well. Inside your href, you'll want to put that little blurb that I just gave to you guys. And in order to actually get to this little blurb, we're going to have to create a new folder in our root directory. So the outermost folder. So we'll add a folder, and we call it, what do we call it? We call it CSS. And inside CSS, we want to add a file called template.css. I'm going to go back right now to template.